Hey guys, so today what we're going to look at is just a real brief lecture on the troubleshooting tools for network administrator. There's a couple of tools that are very useful, and so I'm going to demonstrate those. And you've already seen one of them. You've already seen TraceRt, but I'm going to go through it a little bit more specifically. And then there's also a tool called Netstat that we're going to look at. So let's go ahead and go to the desktop. Okay, so here we are. I have a command prompt. These are both command line tools. So I have a command prompt open, and I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do TraceRt first. Basically what TraceRt does is it hits all the nodes between you and whatever address you are trying to reach. And what this will do is it will allow you to see where a connection is broken. It will allow you to see where the traffic is falling off. So I'm going to go ahead and TraceRt to yahoo.com. And as you can see, the first ping, now this is ICMP based, so it's ping based. You have to have the ICMP protocol available. If not, then you will not be able to use TraceRt if you don't have that particular service available on your router. But what happens, the first thing is it goes out to the DNS server and finds, make sure it's there, and it finds the DNS information for Yahoo. So what it needs to know is that yahoo.com is IP address 74.6.231.21. And then it starts sending out to the different nodes between here and there, so to speak. It goes out till it finally reaches our external address. And then past that, now we're out onto the actual internet. And occasionally you'll get a request timed out. That just means that maybe that service is not available. Maybe ICMP is not turned on for that particular router, or maybe that one is down. But because it picked up the next one, you can see ZipZio is a well-known. Anytime you see ZipZio or Zio, what that means is that you're hitting backbone servers. So we've hit at least two of those. We finally reached the Yahoo domain. There are a lot of Yahoo servers, and so it's bouncing around inside the Yahoo domain, and it's looking for their specific yahoo.com, which is their web server. And once it finds that, which is 74.6.231.21, that's where the trace ends. So we were able to successfully trace all of the nodes between my computer here in the office and the Yahoo web server located at this IP address. The times we have here are turnaround times, how long it took for each of the three pings to get there, and how when they got a response. So basically what we have, like I said, this one usually means that either that node is down or its settings are such that it won't respond to ping requests. But that's okay, because then the TraceRt just goes on to the next node. Now, what can happen if a piece of the network is actually legitimately down? If a piece of the network, let's say a router somewhere out here, was actually down, particularly back up here in the internal part of the network. This is actually where it's a lot more useful. Out here, even if a part of the router's down, there's really nothing you can do about it, because you don't have any control. These are all external servers. These are all external nodes. But let's say our router was down or something like that. Well, we'd get TraceRt. We'd get a ping from the next node and maybe the next node. But let's say our external interface to the internet in our router was down. Then this ping would stop, and then everything else would be dead. So that would tell us that no, it's not this node or this node. It's not the internal DNS. It's not internal router, but it's the external router face that's down. So this is how you use TraceRt to troubleshoot a network. It tells you basically where the connection stops. And at that point, then all the rest of these would be filled in with asterisks, and we wouldn't get any connections, and we wouldn't have anything down here. So that will tell you when your connection is down. This is particularly useful for internal connections. Now the other tool that we're going to use is called Netstat. I'm just going to go ahead and what it does is it lists out all of the network connections currently enabled on your system. So if I run that, it's just Netstat. I'm not going to use any tags with it. Okay, so we've got the protocol, that's TCP, UDP, ICMP, whatever protocol is being used. The local address, this should be me. The foreign address, this is where the connection is established with, like here we got Microsoft. Well, we'll talk about the ports here in a second, but basically this is the external address I'm connected to, and then the state, it can be either established, it may be closed but waiting, it can be open, it can be connecting. There's a lot of different things that it can be. So I'm going to let this run a little bit, and then we're going to kind of go through and analyze it, because there's some things that you need to know. Basically, it's mainly about the ports. The ports are what are important, so to speak, and there's a point to that. So as we established last chapter, a port together with an IP address is called a socket, and all these things over here are actually sockets. So essentially what we've got is a lot of TCP connections from my computer, and the computer, when my computer connects to something, what it does is it selects a port, a virtual port from very high up in the numbers. We can go up to 53,000 some odd, but so what my computer does is it'll pick an internal port just at random out of those higher numbers. And like you can see, this one's 46, 619, 620. All these ports, that's how my computer builds kind of a temporary socket. As long as this connection's enabled, that port will be used. But then once that port is no longer, or once the connection is no longer established, then this port gets returned and it can be picked up again for some other connection. So these port numbers, the numbers following the colon in the socket, are basically just random port numbers that my computer has picked. They have to be less than 53,000, whatever the upper limit of the port is. Now, on the other hand, let's go over here and look. In the foreign address, these ports are absolutely not random. These are established port numbers. For example, here's a web connection. I know it's a web connection because the port is HTTPS. That's port 443. If there's an established port associated with that protocol, then it will use the protocol instead of the port. So Microsoft DS, that port is, I'm guessing that's DNS. Anything that says HTTPS is going to be port 443. So all these connections are connecting to these various servers through port 443. These are web pages that I currently have open right now. So that's what these are. But you'll notice these, my ports are still these high random numbers. Basically, my computer's just picking these at random out of the port list. It doesn't matter what my computer picks because mine are these are all internal, and so they're all behind the router. It doesn't matter. In fact, they're leaving the Grayson router, going out into the internet with a completely different port number anyway. What this port number is used for is when when their traffic response for these requests come back, the router knows that I put these ports, my computer put these port numbers in, and so it's using them along with my IP address to tell the router what traffic to send back and what application to aim it at. So these ports really don't matter other than they're used for identification purposes. It's these ports that matter. So for example, HTTPS is going to be port 443. 49694, this is another internal. It's going to the print service. So this is my connection to my printer. And so basically it's using an internal port that it got from internally rather than, or pardon me, it's using an internal port that it's getting that the printer got from our internal router, or from its own self. It just made that one up. So these are two internal connections. This one is the printer on the second floor of the library, and this is my computer hooking up to it. Port 5228, I'm not sure what that is, but it is an established port number. Most of these are web traffic. 99% of them are going to be web traffic. And I'm trying to see if there's anything that's actually different here. All right, these 42779s, these are internal. You can tell that they're connected to the 10.5.0 range. So these are all internal connections. These are probably the VPN or the whatever that connection is that our computers use. Yeah, that Alertus desktop, one of those is going to be that. These are all internal connections. And you can tell because they use these really high port numbers that are not associated with anything. Then we're back to a few more HTTP. These are a couple of non-secure web connections. This is probably port 80 or 8080 for those two, or those four. And then HTTPS, of course, is 443. All right, now, these are internal connections. So 127.0.0.1, these are all loop-back connections. They are all inside my computer. And Library 210 is also my computer. So these are internal network connections. There are processes going on inside my computer that require network. These are virtual network connections. They're not really going anywhere into a network. They're just inside my computer. So essentially that's what Netstat does. It gives you the entire list of every single connection, whether it's external or internal, that your computer is currently connected to. So if you have suspicions about something going on inside your computer, if you feel like maybe there's some kind of a virus that's connecting or some kind of malware, you can run Netstat, and if you see something that looks suspicious in this list, something appear that should be HTTPS, should be secure HTTP, but it's not, something that has a real weird port number that's not internal like these are, you see something internal like this, or an external address with an internal port number, then that should make you suspicious, and you can troubleshoot further from there using different tools. But Netstat will allow you to see what the connections are. So to summarize, we looked at two different tools that we can use to troubleshoot network connections. We looked at Netstat, that allows us to see all the things that our network is connected to, and then we looked at TraceRt, which allows us to see all the nodes between our computer and whatever computer we choose to use. TraceRt is really handy for internal connections. If you're trying to connect to a computer inside your network and for some reason it's not connecting, you can TraceRt to that node, and you'll usually see where the connection is dying at, and that's a very handy thing to have. So anyway, if you have any questions, go ahead and contact me through the Canvas inbox, and hope to see you in class.